This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
The night before bragging rights, there's a much talked about sport happening. Of course, it's UFC 121. The reason it's of particular interest here is we've got Cain Velasquez defeating Brock Lesnar by TKO in 4 minutes and 12 seconds of the very first round to win the heavyweight title. The event does over 1 million buys. The next night, of course, bragging rights does 137,000 buys. At Crown Jewel, we get a rematch, if you will, and this time it's in the WWE. Last year, 2019, Lesnar would beat Kane. It took 1 minute and 28 seconds. It was appointment television for wrestling fans, and I'm sure a lot of the folks within the industry, whenever Brock Lesnar stepped inside the octagon. Were you shocked to see Kane make such short work of Brock?
No, when you got heavy hitters like that and you got heavy hands like those guys do, those heavyweights, man, they will knock your head completely off. Well, the lightweights will too, but the heavyweights, man, are just, you don't see a lot of 5-round fights with two top heavyweights. You just don't. It could go in 30 seconds. It could go 5 rounds and they beat themselves into a coma just about. I've seen both ways. So we knew that Brock was going to go for the kill just by his nature, and Cain Velasquez, he was a really skilled guy. That's what he had trained for. He wasn't a professional wrestler or anything else. He's a professional fighter.
Right.
So we knew that one had the potential to have a quick finish and fireworks, and it did.
Let's talk about Kane for a minute. He popped up and did a big match in Mexico wearing a mask, and I think he even pulled off a little aerial maneuver, and he had a lot of eyes on him. And I think there may have even been some preliminary interest from Cody and the gang and saying, hey man, this might be a guy. Again, I didn't talk to anybody about that. I'm just saying there was a lot of buzz around him. He winds up signing with WWE. He's on that first big SmackDown once they're on network TV. And well, it wasn't long for that world. Would you be surprised if you saw Kane take a stab at wrestling somewhere else now that he's no longer with WWE, or do you think he got it out of his system?
Well, I don't know. You'd have to ask him, but I think he has so much raw athletic ability, and he has such a look. I mean, he scares me just looking at him on TV. He's got that eye of the tiger gimmick. I think if he truly has always been a closet fan and loved wrestling, like as a kid, like most of us, and grown up, but he just took a different path as far as the UFC and the MMA stuff. If it's still kind of stirring in his belly, when things heat back up, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get re-signed with WWE, because I don't think they've got their full benefit out of him. And I don't think, he's had a chance to, with enough training and some more training and some on the job training with some skilled talent that, we've seen the last or the best of him.
I hope not. I had a chance to meet him several years ago. Nice guy. Couldn't be nicer. He seems like a big wrestling fan too. And anytime you can bring an outsider in who has a passion for it, and they're not just there, quote unquote, for the payday, but they really love it. Like we saw what Ronda Rousey did. And I mean, those guys can be real needle movers for you to a new fan base. Of course, loyal fan base is going to be there as long as they can. I shouldn't say they'll always be there, because we've seen some of that erode over time. But when you can get sort of the casual guy who maybe used to watch wrestling and doesn't anymore, I think they call him the lapsed fan. Shout out to JP and them. Either way though, I do think that there is more meat on the bone for Kane, or I hope so.
Well, let me just say this about a lot of those guys that I've met. And let me tell you, when I found out Ronda Rousey and her crew were using the Horsewomen thing, for her to know who I was.
Right.
Ronda Rousey was the biggest star in MMA for a time, male or female. And I'm a huge fan of MMA. And for that, you're talking about being flattered and things throughout history that have been cool and people we've got to meet and all that. Meeting Ronda under the circumstances of the respect level she has for what we do and wanting to associate herself with the Horsemen. I was hugely flattered. And her husband turned out to be such a gentleman and a hell of a fighter too. And it's Daniel Cormier, who I've talked to a couple times backstage in LA. It's like across the board, they're such quality people. It's just, to get to meet them and find out that not only will they rip your head off, as soon as, the fight starts, backstage, they're really quality human beings, and that makes it even better. So, I'm a fan of their sport across the board.
It's going to be fun to see what happens next with Kane. And for that matter, if Ronda ever comes back, and you got to think at some point the timing will line up. Let's talk about another big star, literally the Big Show. We get a movie preview for his new movie, Knucklehead, which the promo says will be out in theaters. Slant Magazine gave the film 0.5 star out of a possible 5 stars. And they wrote the movie's title as, quote, a description for both the film and anyone who chooses to be its audience. I think according to boxofficemojo.com, it did open in some theaters and it drew $7,927 worldwide. Of course, that would not include television licensing, direct to video sales, or anything like that. But the movie Knucklehead doesn't seem like a lot of people saw it. Did you see it?
I did not. And I love Big Show, but, not much of a movie guy. It better be something. And this has been that way for me my entire life. It better be something that grabs me. Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid, Top Gun, some of those type movies. I did not see Show's movie. Like I said, we're working all the time, but he did. Let me just clarify this. He did get paid, right?
Oh yeah.
And Show was happy. I know him that well.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.